Well, summer has certainly arrived, and as we flock to pools and beaches to cool off, sadly, the risk of drowning increases. Each year, the warnings are sounded, but tragedies in the water continue. Let's discuss this now with the president of Lifesaving SA, Dhaya Sewduth. Dhaya, thank you very much for coming in. Today, a really important organisation or an alliance was launched, the Drowning Prevention Alliance. Why is this going to make a difference, do you think?
Thank you, Sally. Firstly, good evening to you and good evening to your listeners. I think a Drowning Prevention Alliance will be a fantastic collaboration of various organizations that will be able to meet our nation's needs. I think a country like South Africa, where the large majority of the population do not know how to swim, don't have swimming skills, water safety education is not really part of the school's curriculum.
Well, it's not possible. So many schools simply don't have swimming pools, don't have access to that. So how do we get around that?
Well, you know, even though they don't have the swimming pools, but there are thousands of kids that have to actually cross rivers morning and afternoon to get to school. There are thousands of children who are in the care of grandparents when their parents are at work. And there's always a danger, even in a couple of centimeters of water left in an open container, in a bucket that had clothes that were washed. And it could only take a second for someone to turn their back, for some toddler to fall head first into that bucket of water, and then you have an unfortunate tragedy. So the need is great, and I believe a Drowning Prevention Alliance can actually deal with a wide spectrum of issues, ranging from legislation, which is largely absent, from research, from drowning prevention campaigns, to swimming skills. So there's a whole range of needs that we believe an alliance could actually address, and hopefully that alliance could get institutionalized into water safety councils, very much like the experience abroad in Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, and other countries where they engage with government to meet these needs.
Roughly how many drownings do we have every year?
It's hard to say, but it's ranged from anything from 1,700 to about 2,000 drownings per year. When you have massive floodings, you often have a spike. It's unfortunate that in inland waterways and rivers, we're seeing that the statistics are on the increase compared to the coastlines. Largely because along the coastline you have professional lifeguards, you have voluntary clubs like the ones belong to Lifesaving South Africa that perform voluntary duties. So you have a fair amount of protection, but the figures are on the increase.
No, that's very worrying. You said they're rising.
Yes.
You know, I was wondering, where do most drownings occur? Is it those unguarded bodies of water inland? Is it at the coast? Or is it these awful tragedies that happen when your back is turned and your child tips into a bucket of water and you don't realize?
It's a range. The statistics range across all of those environments, but we've seen that the inland waterways, unfortunately, there've been increased statistics. What is important is that the age group factor is also important. Our research has shown in the age group of around 5, 6, up to 17 years old, that is the age group that is at the highest risk.
And you know, as you say that, of course, we think of Enoch and Pianze from Parktown Boys High, who drowned this year in that river at a Nyati Bush camp. And we know yesterday that the principal has now been fired as a result. We do expect to see more action. But there's a situation with a school, a well-resourced school, teachers who knew how to swim, and yet still allowed these boys to enter the river that was actually dangerously high, we understand. There's so much that needs to be done around education. Where do we start?
I think largely in the education sector itself, an organization like Lifesaving South Africa, we have written the water safety and the drowning prevention section in the life skills orientation. We've done it only at grade 4 and grade 6, but we have limited resources as a voluntary organization to reach every school. So I think the Department of Education, has the potential to actually roll this out at a greater scale. But looking at that particular incident, there's so much that can be done in terms of ensuring that safety comes first. The Schools Act, the school has a safety framework. It seems to be a little absent in terms of excursions and safety around water bodies. But I believe that, that lots can be done. Assessing the skills of learners, ensuring that they have the safety equipment. But most important, Sally, every event, whether it's a swimming gala, an inter-school gala, they must have safety officers and lifeguards. And our country has huge, job creation imperatives. There are thousands and thousands of lifeguards that we've trained. Young people who are absolutely skilled, have the qualifications. They may be students, and they could do with the extra earnings.
Absolutely. But aren't we seeing a situation where some lifeguards on certain beaches, because municipalities are under pressure, are not actually being employed? They're not being given those jobs.
Well, the municipalities would have obviously their own constraints, but there's the important thing is that we want to promote tourism in our country. It's a huge thing. We want to promote adventure sports. We want to promote tour guiding. And here are thousands of youngsters who are trained, who actually can be employed. As I said, from galas over the weekend to,
even to private, private parties have one person who's always in charge, and that is such an important tip, that there's always someone who's watching the water.
Yeah. Very quickly, the schools, when beaches open and pools open and other water parks open, the school excursions are going to start. And that's the other lesson. There's always a checklist to ensure that the bus is organized, the accommodation is organized, the food is organized, the tracksuits are organized. We urge schools to ensure that they contact beach managers at the coastline or at whichever water park, because those experts can ensure that they're guided to a safe place where there are lifeguards on duty.
Absolutely.
And not just stop along any coastline and
that's when the dangers are. Thank you so much for coming into the studio this evening. That was President of Lifesaving SA, Dhaya Sewduth.